Hi, I'm Kathryn.
And I'm Theresa.
And we are the co-authors of the book, Pass the Baton, Empowering All Music Students.
Our goal is to share stories of educators who are passing the baton and empowering their music students. We want to help teachers create music lessons that transform students from passive consumers to vibrant creatives. All right. Welcome back to the Pass the Baton podcast. We are here to talk about all things student empowerment in music education. Before we introduce today's guests, which is us, we want to remind you to follow or subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes.
In addition, if you like what you hear today, please consider leaving a rating or review. That's what helps podcasts like Pass the Baton grow.
Yes. All right. So as we just alluded to, today's guests are us. We thought this was going to be a good opportunity just to talk about the year, both in our, teaching worlds and then the year on the podcast, and then give you a little sneak peek of what's to come. So Kathryn, why don't you start us off? How was your school year?
Yeah, I feel like I have to start with a sigh.
Yes.
It was tough. It really was a tough year. There was a lot of rethinking activities and rebuilding routines and starting to go and students were really going through some trauma as we got back and got to know, what their situations were like. But then on the flip side, we were together again, which was so nice. Because for me, I was in my basement for the year before. So there was a disconnect with the kids. There was just a renewed appreciation for our activities. When we actually got to be in a circle and do a singing game, it was the most wonderful thing. Because we're like, this is so much fun. And you're like, yeah, this is, right? And there was a bond between coworkers too. I feel like there was a new renewed respect between some people in my building, between me and others, because we had to have each other's back while I was in a classroom or, in a basement, actually, in this space. So just I think, I was in everybody's room, everybody got to see what I do. And so there's just kind of a nice respect and bond there. That was something that was surprising to me, but awesome to have. So it was a good year. I was so glad to be back with the kids. It was hard. It was, being 20 plus years in the classroom, nothing like I've ever experienced, but, I'm in the summer now and I'm resting and ready to just kind of relax and start thinking about the new year, maybe in a month or so. Yeah.
Don't think about it yet. You need to step away, enjoy some sunshine.
Totally.
All of that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But you had some awesome adventures this year. You got to share what you've been doing.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So my year was really different. For those of you who didn't pick up on this or didn't hear about it, I decided last summer to leave my teaching job. As Kathryn said, that pandemic teaching year was rough for a lot of reasons. And I just knew that I needed to step away from the classroom. So I took a step away. And I actually have spent the last 10 months traveling and working remotely, doing professional development for teachers, working for a couple different tech companies, writing, and really just getting a chance to do something different. And it was awesome. It was everything I needed it to be, and a chance to work with a lot of really great teachers. As I said, I was writing. I just was able to publish my second book last week through F-Flat Books called Empowering Ensembles with Technology. But the real biggest part of all that is I've now officially have moved. I'm in my own space. You may have also noticed there's been different backgrounds the last 10 months. And I'm now living in Tempe, Arizona, which is right outside Phoenix. And in the fall, I'll be going to Arizona State University to work towards my PhD in music learning and teaching. So
yeah, Theresa, those are two big things, a book and a PhD. That's amazing and awesome. Good for you.
It's exciting. And it's been an amazing adventure. I feel really lucky that I was able to take the time and do that. So yeah, it's been crazy. It's also nice to have my own space again. As much as I loved traveling and seeing all the different things and spending time with family that I hadn't really had a chance to do, it's nice to be in my own spot. But don't be fooled. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, the little area that you see right here is the only clean and organized area in the whole house. Everything else is still a disaster. So give me some time.
Yeah. You need a little bit of time for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think when we think back too of our year as a podcast and YouTube series, it's really fun to look back and see all the people we've interviewed and all the conversations we've had. And I think we were talking and reciting, like there really were like three main themes that just kind of kept coming through with different people. And we promised we didn't ask them to say those things, right? They just kind of kept coming up, right?
Yeah.
That, we hear often that the building relationships and knowing your students is super important, that you have to start small, because you just have to, right? We cannot take on too many things. And that idea of like, we all, of course, want that end goal of people or of our students being lifelong musicians, lovers of music, right? And that it was awesome how people come with different stories and different perspectives. And yet that kind of always was the three things we kept hearing.
Yeah, I agree. And I love it because we would ask the question, well, what advice would you give someone? Where should they start? You have to know your students. Like, well, yes. Okay. And it also was really kind of reassuring for me because those were things that I believed as well. So to hear that it wasn't just me who felt that those were such important concepts, that other music teachers who were successfully giving their kids ownership were doing these things as well.
Yeah. And then when we were diving into building relationships, of course, Dr. Scott Edgar was somebody to definitely talk to, the associate professor at Lake Forest College, but also the director of practice and research for the Center of Arts Education and Social Emotional Learning. Yeah. We interviewed him in episode 27. And of course, the connection between SEL and empowerment. And he had so many wonderful things to say. But one of the quotes that we both really loved was, the most powerful question that we can ask is, what do we know about your students? And beyond what do we know, we ask ourselves, what don't we know? And how are we going to find out? Right. And it's always a process when you're getting to know your kids. And it was, this coming back this year, I realized there's a whole lot of stuff that I don't know because we've been away from each other for a couple of years, Mm-hmm. So such an important part to rebuild this year and this fall too.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that we've always known, right?
Yeah.
We've always kind of known, but we've seen recently just how important it is. And you're right. We can't just say, oh, well, we did that last year. It's going to be a very important part of what we build in our programs, I think, for the next several years.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not just the haircuts and the dogs at home and the things like that, but like who's really good at X, Y, and Z, and how am I going to empower them to help the group with X, Y, and Z, right? So there's just so many levels or layers to getting to know your kids and then using that information to empower them.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely one to like revisit right before the school year starts because he had so many great ideas.
Yeah.
I agree. And then, so that was something that we heard pretty much from all of our guests, that idea. But then the other thing that they would often say was that idea of you had to start small, right? You can't just go in tomorrow and change everything because it's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for your kids. You're most likely to crash and burn, give up, all of that. So starting small was something that a lot of people recommended. Try one activity and maybe even one activity with one class.
Yeah.
See how it goes. And then try it with another class, things like that. And I really loved the conversation that we had with Scott Sheehan. So if you remember, Scott Sheehan is a high school band director in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, but he is also, as of only a couple of days ago, he's now the NAFME president. He was president-elect when we interviewed him. He is now NAFME president. And we talked to him about the standards. And I'll admit, it was a nerdy conversation and I loved every minute of it. It was so fascinating to hear him talk about the standards because sometimes it just seems overwhelming, especially when you look at the not new anymore standards. And there's a lot more words, right? Than the ones we were seeing previous. But when we asked Scott, what do we do? How do you start? And he said, take a look at one standard, look at the verbs and ask yourself, what are the students doing? How can I empower them to take charge of this action? And then he finished by saying, it's that easy. And it's true. It's that easy. Just one standard, look for those action words.
Yeah. Yeah. And because I think, like you said, it's overwhelming if we take too much on, but one class, one lesson, one standard,
right?
Really look at the verbs and just what's one thing I can do. It's really that small of a step that will then grow to much bigger things for sure.
Because that's what's so great about these standards is all of the verbs point to student actions. What are the students doing? And that's giving them ownership of the music making. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's just reading the standard and realizing, oh, I as the teacher make those choices. What's one little thing I can do to let them make that choice? Because in the end, I should be letting them make some of those choices or all of those choices. Right. Absolutely.
But start small.
Start small. Yeah. You can't just say, hey, we're going to figure it all out. Here's all the choice. Like that's not, right. Yeah. You can't maintain that. And they're not ready for that. And yeah. Well, and then the other thing that we kept hearing too is this, that of course everybody wants, I mean, I loved all the people that we interview. They're such good people, good humans, and they want to build independent lifelong musicians, right? That's what we all we want for our kids and we want for people. So, right. So like, that's our end goal. That's what we want them to have. But if we are managing or leading all of the activities until they leave our classrooms, are we really going to cultivate independent lifelong musicians, or do they need Mrs. Finch to tune their instrument? That's like, whoops, I missed something there, right? Because then I don't want them to need me, right? And we spoke with Crystal Williams. Actually, she was just our last episode. She talked. Her episode 29 was using technology to promote student ownership, but I really loved the quote she talked about, or one of her quotes, that because it kind of related to our book title. The one thing I had to unlearn was the power of the podium. If I'm not the one in charge, who's in charge? All of us. This is your band room too. If it doesn't sound good, we can all own that, right? And I feel like that's how kind of Pass the Baton came about, is that like, we can't just be always at the front of the room if we really are on a podium, or in my case is general music, like we're not always leading them. We've got to give them some choice. We've got to give them some voice. We've got to help them see themselves as musicians so that they will develop down the road and, have that I can philosophy of like, I can do this, right? The growth mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that also kind of leads into, the other thing. So about probably halfway through this year, we started asking people just one question that we were asking everybody. And it really came about because I felt like Kathryn and I would do presentations and do workshops, and we would present all this information. And inevitably at some point in time, someone would raise their hand and say, but what about the concert? And that's a really valid question. If we're constantly passing the baton, if we're constantly getting off of the podium, what about the concert? Because we as music educators have expectations that our students will perform and perform well in our communities and our school districts and our administration and all that. And how do you do that when you are giving the students so much ownership? And it was fascinating that, again, almost everybody said the same thing. It's not an either or. It's both. That, as you're empowering these students, you are going to, as a result, have good performances. And Angela Ammerman, I think she had a great way of putting it. So Angela's she was episode 24, and she's actually an adjunct professor at George Mason University, Northern Virginia. But anyways, Angela says, it's a slow burn. As we empower our students, it leads to this incredible increased motivation and loyalty. And that leads naturally to a fire for music. Yeah. So notice she admitted it's a slow burn.
Yeah.
It's not an overnight, but that comes back to the other things we've been saying. You build the relationships, you start small, you recognize the goal is this independent musicianship.
Mm-hmm.
And over time it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is kind of a happy balance between both. It has to be both.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. We've had such amazing guests, and I love the fact that, some of these people we had relationships to prior to interviewing,
Mm-hmm.
and others we didn't really know, but now have built those great relationships. And, I consider these people friends and colleagues, and just, I'm such a supporter of all their work. So if you haven't listened to episodes 1 through 29, this summer is your chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted, when we started talking about on episode 30, I wanted to mention everybody, because there really are so many cool things from each person's perspective, but yeah. So take a listen when you can.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's talk about what's next for Pass the Baton, right?
Yeah.
So at being episode 30, we are going to take a break with the podcast, and we'll return in the fall or for next school year. With that said, if anybody has somebody in mind or themselves that they want to reach out to us, we would love to talk to people. So please reach out to us at passthebatonbook.com or any of our social media. We'd be happy to talk to you.
Yeah, while we won't be releasing any new episodes this summer, we will be recording them for, for the next season, trying to get ahead a little bit. So the other kind of big exciting thing for this summer has to do with the course. So some of you may or may not know, we did put out a course called Empowering All Music Students. It's a self-paced course. Which, we've gotten some great feedback on so far. But this summer, we're actually going to have our first ever cohort. So it'll give you access to, you'll have access to the course itself for 6 months. The cohort is going to run for most of July, July 5th to August 1st. And what we'll do is we'll do a weekly Zoom session, with Kathryn and I, and then anybody who's part of the cohort, to kind of dig a little bit deeper into the material. What's nice about the course is you have that little bit of accountability that's not always there when you're doing something completely self-paced. In fact, I was doing some research, and it said that doing a course as part of a cohort, you're 15 times more likely to finish it, which I don't know about you, Kathryn, but I've definitely noticed that in myself.
Oh, yeah.
We thought that was a good thing. So again, we're putting together this cohort. If you're interested, you go ahead and you can register for the course. We'll include the link down in the show notes. And we even have a $10 off coupon for the course that we will have linked as well. That coupon is going to be good until July 5th when the course starts. So I think that's something that we're both really excited about. And I think it'll be a lot of fun just to have that opportunity to talk to other teachers, collaborate, that community aspect of learning. It'll be good.
Yeah. And so you'll be able to find that off Dave Burgess Consulting University, which will have the links and everything for everybody too, which you can find off of our website, passthebatonbook.com. So there you can see the course and some details about the cohort, but also there's so many resources there that we like to remind people of. There's the book study resources. So if you do want to go on your own and read with some of your coworkers, there's book study resources and there's some freebies on the site with some templates and things. There's so many things to check out there. When you're enjoying your time off this summer.
Yes, which you need to be doing. Make sure you enjoy your time off. It shouldn't all be about summer learning, but if you want to infuse some additional things, definitely check out the course, check out the resources, and consider joining the cohort. And I should also mention, if you previously have purchased the course, you're still welcome to join the cohort, because the more the merrier. And I think we learn so much from each other just from having those parts of our PLN and
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
So thanks for another great season. Thanks for listening. If you haven't listened to the episodes 1 through 29, this is a great opportunity. we'll see you in the fall.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
We'd also love for you to consider sharing this podcast with a friend and leaving a positive review. That's one of the best ways to get this message to new listeners.